everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Kathleen. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Appreciate everybody joining. Hope you've had a chance to take a look at the minutes or two sets that were sent out. We had the last monthly meeting, and then we had a meeting with the consultant that had been doing the work. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but consultant that was home based. Thank you. Quick meeting with them after. So we had two sets of minutes there. If you've had a chance to review those, I'd love to get a motion to adopt those, or if there's any changes you feel like we need to make, we can let folks, I guess Andrea know. Is Kathleen logged off?
Still here.
This is Shane. Motion to adopt.
Shane, is there a second?
This is Alan, second.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any opposed to approving those? And that was both sets, right, Shane and Alan, that you were asking?
It was.
Or motioning? Okay, that's what I assumed. All right, well, we will show those as approved. Thank you, everyone, for that. First topic, really, other than the minutes, is the veteran goal progress. And Andrea, I think you were going to present an update on that.
I am. This one's going to be very short because the VA hadn't released their new dashboards yet. So I don't have the official update from them. So as soon as I get the dashboard with the newest numbers on it for September, I will pass those along to everybody so you can see how we're doing. So
okay, you'll just email those.
Yep, I'll email them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then Sharika, I show you then as the next topic up, the Step Up America hotel motel conversion. Give an update there.
Yes. So the city, we have been working with a group entitled Step Up America. It is a nonprofit that is based in California, and also with an individual by the name of Philip Magano. With him, he has an organization entitled American Roundtable to Abolish Homelessness. He has a huge history of working in the homeless sector. He was appointed by President Barack Obama, as well as President Bush, to do some items around homelessness, and was one of the big pushes of the 10-year plan that a lot of individuals and local governments did do. So with partnering with these two organizations, we were able to get them to come in and do a motel hotel conversion. So with this motel hotel conversion, Philip and his team will buy a local hotel. So no local dollars or city money will be used. They will acquire the motel and rehab the motel and make 100 permanent supportive housing units for the chronically homeless. The city will be responsible to provide $2,258,234 in home art funds. And with those home art funds, there will be supportive services on site, as well as property management 24/7 on site. So we will have individuals that live on site to provide that case management and wraparound services that are needed for our clients. We've also integrated VASH vouchers through the VA, working with Keisha and Chelsea, as well as Halls vouchers, working with Kelly Church and Kevin Cheshire from Halls to assist with paying for the rent and covering that part of the funds. So we are looking to, it was passed by City Council on Monday, and now we are looking to gear up, and Philip and his team have been flying in, looking at various motels, and we're looking to have this project done within a year. So we're hoping to have moving dates of December, no later than December 2023 for 100 units. So right now we are looking at about $7,500 per unit coming from local funds. But that's just an update on one of the projects we're working on the city side to bring additional housing to those experiencing homelessness.
So that sounds great, Sharika. I guess it's up to 100 units, since they haven't identified which hotel, motel.
Yes,
Is that
right now
right?
it's
Okay.
up to 100 units. They're hoping to do additional motels after this one, but we are focusing on getting this one done within the next 10 months to 10 to 12 months.
Okay.
Do they use hotels that are on the bus line? Is that is that a criteria for being in the program?
Yes, accessibility is one of the main requirements. So they do have to look at the accessibility to services as well as to transportation. And one of the things that they also look at is the blighted motels. So the motels that don't look too well in the community. So targeting those motels and making and bringing them up to standards. And they're also looking at rooms, the room size, so making sure that there's enough space for someone to live in once they do add that kitchenette into the unit. So I'm making sure the rooms can either be expanded or currently at the size they're able to effectively be turned into an apartment.
That's great. Good news on the housing front. We've been looking for something good to talk about there.
Very exciting.
Great. In 10 months. So they're hoping to have this not just identified, but actually rehabbed and ready to go inside a year.
Yes, within a year. We were one of the few cities selected. Another city that was selected was Greensboro. Asheville was selected last year. So Asheville is gearing up to actually be finished. So once that is done, hopefully we can all go and view theirs so that we can get a glimpse of what we're going to be expecting as well. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated on that in case any of you are interested to come along.
All right, great. Well, that's good news. Well, thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Could just adjourn the meeting now and end on a good note, or maybe we should have had that last.
Oh, Laura's
Good.
presentation is going to be exciting.
Well, that's true. That's true. Didn't mean to slight Laura. That's right. Well, Andrea, I'm showing you're up next with an update on the trauma-informed care.
I am. So I have the next 3 items. So I'll just cover them.
Okay,
They're mostly
perfect.
pretty updates. Sorry that Rosie decided to be chatting now. I just wanted to let everybody know we've been working for the last couple of years on helping the COC become a trauma-informed system. So we've had a number of cohorts of people go through the 3-day training with the Center for Trauma and Resilience that is headquartered at the Children at Crossnor here. And then this spring we had 4 of us in the COC participate in the Train the Trainer program. And then we just received news this last month that we received funding from the Winston-Salem Foundation to hire a full-time position to help us implement the trauma-informed strategies across the whole COC. So we'll be working with Karen McKinney, who was one of those of us who went through the training, the Train the Trainer in the spring. So she is a certified trauma trainer now. And we'll be working with all the agencies that are members of the continuum of care. And we'll be looking at starting with the core agencies that provide shelter and housing services for folks transitioning out of homelessness, and then other providers that also work with them on how do we support each organization, and then how do we support sort of interorganizational work with a trauma-informed lens. So you'll hear more about that. Karen is going to start that. She's currently working with us as a prevention specialist. She's going to, that will be finished at the end of October, and then she'll start in this new position December 1st. So we're excited about that. Any questions about that before I move on to the charter? Okay. So part of our charter is that we have a biannual review of the charter, and it was also one of the recommendations in Home Base that we look at our governance structure. So it timed out well for us. So we're putting together a committee. I have 3 of us from the operating cabinet who volunteered, and I was hoping to get 2 or 3 folks from the commission to help volunteer, be on that committee to review the charter, talk about where we want to gather information from, about suggested changes for the charter, and then we'll move it through the continuum of care decision-making process.
Andrea, should we find out what the city is going to do with potential restructure before we go through that process,
I think if we,
or have we?
so my thinking was if we put the committee together, then we can work with the city. We have to, I mean, the charter says we need to do this now. It just gets us in line so that we have folks lined up to be part of that process.
Okay.
Because the city is one partner in the whole governance structure. So, and
You're looking for volunteers?
Yeah, and Shrek is one of the folks on the committee from the city.
Well, I'm happy to volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah, Andrea, I'll be glad to volunteer too, whatever
Okay.
way I can help.
Awesome. So I will start by sending everybody on a committee a copy of the charter again, so you have it fresh in your email to review, and then we'll go from there. And we'll coordinate with the city as we move forward with this work.
Okay, great. We'll keep going.
Yep, and then the last
Pit
item I
count.
had was pit count. So this is just a heads up for everybody. Part of the annual pit count that happens the last week of January, the numbers come from two sources. One is everybody who's staying in a homeless service. So the shelter is transitional housing, rapid rehousing. We count all of those folks as part of the pit count. Most of that data comes out of our HMIS system. The other part of the data comes from a street count. And HUD has some specifications for what they want out of that street count. And they only require you turn in the street count number every other year. So up until last year, we had turned in a street count number every year. And the January of 2021, HUD allowed people, because of the pandemic, if they had a by name list of people that were homeless and unsheltered, we could turn that in. Last year, they would not let us turn that list in. So we did not turn in a street count number to HUD last year. Although when we locally look at our numbers, we do have that data from our by name list that we use. So this year we have to do a street count. We will have to do an external volunteer heavy survey of folks the last Wednesday in January. So we put together a committee from the operating cabinet that will be planning that. But for those of you who have never been on a pit count, we will be doing it. I don't have a January calendar. The last Wednesday in January. If you'd like to join us. We typically have sent teams of volunteers out from about 8 p.m. to midnight. And then for those folks who are brave enough, we do have a midnight to 4 a.m. shift. We do recruit for people who work nights for that late night shift. We also recruit students who are often up at that time anyways. So it'll be January 25th will be the night of the pit count this year, but we will be having teams that go out. So any questions about the pit count?
Something to look forward to, right?
Yep.
Hope it's a warm night.
Yep. So,
All
yes.
right. Well, thank you for that.
Hope it's a warm and dry night.
Yes.
For everybody's sake. So that's
So
all
thank
I
you
have.
for that. All right. And Laura, you're batting cleanup, it looks like. So we maybe we did save the best for last. So federal reporting, last year's data.
Yeah, sorry, I don't think that my presentation is going to be as good. Some of it might be review, some of it might be new, especially for anybody who's new to this body. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, so first of all, thank you. My name is Laura Lama. I am the HMIS admin for the COC. That means that I am the administrator for the Homeless Management Information System, which is a software that HUD mandates we use so that we can collect the required information from the agencies that are funded with certain federal funds to serve the homeless population. So I'm going to be just reviewing some information about the federal reporting that will be happening starting now. Federal reporting usually starts around this time of year. This is the prepping stage. We're preparing, making sure that we review the data and go through it to make sure that it's accurate and complete as much as possible, at least. And then moving in through the winter and the spring, I will be hard at work with agencies in the community to submit data through various reports. The data is used by HUD and then ultimately by Congress to assess how communities all around the country are serving the homeless populations and how the funds are being used. So what sort of things does HUD look for? They're interested in knowing how, quote, full the programs are throughout the year. They want to know how fast people are being served, how fast people find housing. They want to know what portion of people are able to successfully find housing and where do they end up living. They also want to know if people's income and other resources improve after being connected to services. And ultimately, and lastly, they also want to know if there are differences in success rates between the different subpopulations that are served. So there are 4 major reports that I start to work on now. The first ones that I'm going to talk about are actually snapshots, and Andrea mentioned them, mentioned one very briefly a second ago. So we call the last Wednesday in January, the pit count night or the pit night, because that is the night that HUD has chosen to be the primary point in time where they take a snapshot of the data from across the country to see what homelessness looks like in one night, essentially. So the 2 reports capture the COC at work in that one day. It counts up how many people are homeless in the area and how many projects are active, how many beds, literal beds or like figurative beds are operational, and how many of those beds are full or can, are actually taken up by a person. Other reports look back at a whole 12 months worth of data, and they assess how the system as a whole is serving the community. So one of these reports is called the System Performance Measures. It has 6 metrics that are checked by HUD and that we also use throughout the year to sort of understand how things are working at a system level. So it looks at how many people are being served, how many of them are what HUD has called new to homelessness, the length of time that people are homeless in the system, how many of them attain housing, income gains, and how many of them return to homelessness after attaining housing previously. And then we have the newest report, which is called the Longitudinal System Analysis. And it's like a giant report. It's very sophisticated. And it actually kind of puts all of the data that I just mentioned together along with new data, and it allows COC leadership to study the performance of the system at a much deeper and more detailed manner. And we are all still really learning to use this report to get the most out of it. So to provide a quick summary of how things looked last year or in the previous HUD year, I'm just kind of put together a very short summary. The last point in time count, which again represents the last Wednesday in January of 2022, we had 269 people who were staying in a shelter, an emergency shelter, such as the Bethesda Shelter, Samaritan Ministries, Salvation Army, and the DV shelters. We had 21 people who were staying in what we call transitional housing programs, which are similar to shelter, but it is understood that people can stay there for up to 2 years, and it has a more long-term programming. And then we had 223 unsheltered people in our area. So that is for the entire area of Forsyth County. 223 being an unofficial count. As Andrea mentioned last year, we were not able to officially submit this data to HUD because of how we had to change our methods. So our methods didn't match up with what HUD was willing to accept that year, but we still thought that it's important for us to know still, even though it's not going to HUD. So that was a locally important number for us. So we are still kind of including that whenever we talk about the 2022 point in time count. So we had 223 people who were counted by street outreach folks who were homeless around that night. For the housing inventory chart, we were able to report to HUD that we had 14 agencies operating with 40 different projects operating that night. Literal beds and what I like to call like figurative beds, we had 1,096 and a 74% utilization rate. And then for the projects that represent a 12-year span, I'm just going to use the longitudinal system analysis numbers because it's kind of repetitive to report on both SPMs and LSA at once. But for the HUD year of 2022, 1,030 households were served, and that included 1,297 people in those households. The average length of days that people were homeless was 122. 37% of people who exited the system were exiting to a permanent housing situation. And only 8% of people who had been housed in the previous 2 years had since returned to homelessness. So that's all that I have to present today. I just wanted to provide a very quick summary of what new data y'all should expect as we enter 2023. And I'm here to answer any questions y'all have.
Hey, Laura, it's Jim. Thanks for that update. On that last slide you showed, do you have any comparison to prior years just to know how it might be changing?
I do have that. I just don't have that prepared for today, but if you can give me a second, I can probably pull it up. So yeah, y'all can continue asking questions and talking if you'd like, just because I'll need a second.
Or even you may know anecdotally if you feel like that's better or worse.
I don't want to depend on my memory, frankly. I try not to do that because I really would hate to say the wrong thing.
Spoken like a true statistics person.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Oh, okay, let's see. Sorry for this wait. I just wasn't prepared for that.
Sorry, didn't mean to throw you a curveball.
It's okay. Let's see. Shoot. I'm not sure why I'm not able to find it, but can I just include a slide that includes that information and send it to y'all
Sure.
via PDF?
That's fine. Great. Thank you. It was more of a curiosity on my
questions?
part just to know how we're improving or hopefully improving, but
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, well, I can say that 2020, as you can imagine, did have a big impact. The COC did have to change a lot of a lot of how it works. The shelters had to reduce capacity so that beds could be spread out, and housing people became more difficult than it had already been. So when you have a slowdown in people leaving the system because of the pandemic, that means that there was also a slowdown in people moving through the system, and therefore a slowdown in people being able to enter. So we did serve less people during the pandemic, and each year we have had a bit of a recovery. But I'm just not able to give you the direct numbers right now, but I can send those to you in a PDF.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions for Laura? Okay, well, thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. We look forward to seeing that information come through email.
Sure.
I had one other item under other business, and it was, I guess, just FYI about Folks for Good Housekeeping and a Housing 101 forum on November 17th at Forsyth Technical Community College. Not sure if anybody's got any more information, but that's the update. Andrea, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I'm totally washed out to where the sun is today. So Folks for Good Housing is a local group of people who are interested in advocating for the development of more housing in our community, particularly housing that's affordable for folks at the lower end of our income spectrums. And we've been hosting a panel series trying to help educate just the general public about the issues surrounding housing and housing development and why it's hard. And the November panel is on housing for people with very low incomes, subsidized housing, and supportive housing. So if you're interested in attending that, it will be November 17th at 7:30 at Forsyth Tech in their conference center. And we'll send out more information, and we'll have a sign up. Sign up doesn't, if you don't sign up, you're still welcome. We just are trying to get a sense of numbers so we can plan. And if you can't come, what has been happening is we've been videotaping the panels and then putting clips on the Folks for Good Housing website. So if you are interested in any of the prior panels, they are on the Folks for Good Housing website at this point. And then this one will go up. It takes us a few weeks to get it up. So.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thanks for the details there.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, that's all the business I had on the agenda. Is there anything else from anyone that we need to cover, talk about?
I was able to find the presentation if y'all still want to stick around and see.
Okay.
Okay. Get back into full screen mode. So this is the quickest way for me to show you the change. This is the last year before the pandemic, the last HUD year before the pandemic. Again, the HUD year goes from October to September. So this is a date range that shows data from October of 2018 through September of 2019. So this is showing how many households were served. So we had about 1,600 households, and the average days that people were homeless was 89 at the time. Then moving forward, this is the HUD year that contained the beginning of the pandemic. So October of 19 through September of 2020. So you see that the number of households served went down about 300. We're down to 1,300 households. And the average days that people were homeless went up to 100 days. And then moving further into the pandemic, the number of households served went down again to 963. And the average days that people were homeless went up again to 123 days. So we much like a hospital, we talk about inflow and outflow. So when things slow down, that means less space opens up on, in terms of shelter beds, in terms of case manager, caseload space, right? Like if you think about a case manager's
We lose your audio, Laura.
household, right? Then hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I lost you for a couple of seconds there.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I heard you then.
Hello?
Hi, Laura, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm not sure where you lost me, so I can pick up I'll just say that, as things slow down with the pandemic, less people were able to be served.
But exits, look like the returns has held steady at 8% roughly. And it looks like we're moving back up from 31% during the pandemic back up to, I think it was 37 for this year. So it's moving its way back up. And 37 exits is what I think I saw in 2019 as well. So more normalizing, I guess, in 2022.
Correct. And I will be running the data one more time very soon, just to get the most up-to-date information. And I'll be providing those updates as I move through, federal reporting season.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for pulling that. That was what I was asking about. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I do want to say that the data doesn't always capture obviously the data doesn't capture the full story. So obviously if Sharika or Andrea have anything to add in terms of context, just saying that less people were served during the pandemic doesn't really capture everything that happened. So, I don't want to just leave it there if there's anything else that needs to be said.
I think certainly we've talked some about many of the challenges of the pandemic, one of which is the housing, which had was becoming more and more challenging to find pre-pandemic, just became very, very hard to find. And with the moratorium then leading into the crisis with evictions, it just became very, very challenging for the supportive housing programs to move people. And then you couple that with the challenges we were having with the FMRs. I am hopeful, based on what I'm seeing come from our office this October, that what we will actually see is that with the new FMRs that started October 1st, we're seeing an opening up of opportunities for people with vouchers. I think just anecdotally, what I've seen, so our prevention case manager had about 7 or 8 folks on her caseload who had the emergency housing vouchers that came out as part of the pandemic relief. And they've been looking since last summer, so summer of 2021, for apartments. And 3 of them have moved in at the beginning of October. We have 1 that's moving in this week. And I think anecdotally that had a lot to do with the change in FMRs, allowing them to look at apartments that had a rate of rent that was more prevalent in our community than the FMRs.
Right. Much more realistic.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else to add to that? Thanks again, Laura, for pulling that up. That was helpful. All right. Well, if there's no other business, I guess we will adjourn this meeting. So I appreciate everybody joining, and we'll talk again next month.
Sounds good.
Have a
Thanks,
good day.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.